Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of the Napoleon Hill Ezine video newsletter. My name is Ray Stendall and I'm joined with Judy Williamson from the Napoleon Hill Foundation. Judy, it's been too long. How are you doing on this?
Oh, I'm doing really well, and I'm glad to see you again, too.
So this is our episode just before the New Year's Eve. So we certainly have an important message to share with everyone. Judy, why don't you first start with what this Ezine really represents to you as we mark this important milestone going from 2011 to 2012?
Well, this Ezine was kind of fun for me to do because the topic of time came so much into play. Our guest columnist and the article from the archives from Napoleon Hill and then my column all dealt with time. They just came together in such a remarkable way. And we were chatting before we did this, before we're recording just now, we talked about the significance of time and why many people, when they write their New Year's resolutions, do not 2 months later achieve them. And we came to the conclusion that sometimes it involves that elusive element of time where people are not creating boundaries, or they're not being disciplined with themselves in order to get something accomplished. And so we're going to talk about that today and see why sometimes our New Year's resolutions are really just kind of airy wishes instead of goals. And we're going to give you a couple of examples. And many people, when we take the idea of a wish and transform it into a goal, say, oh, you know, you're being impatient, or you're trying to make me do something I really don't want to do. Well, if you really don't want to do it, then it shouldn't be on your New Year's resolution list. And Ray's going to talk just a little bit about how many items should be on our list and what we need to do with the items that have priorities for us. Right?
That's a great point, Judy. I think that this whole idea of differentiating between a wish and a goal, and the difference between goal setting and goal achieving, is really important, because I think many people can relate to the idea of being really enthusiastic about setting some goals, some New Year's resolutions, being really excited and enthusiastic about it. And then a few months later, the enthusiasm wears down a little bit. They make a few concessions and they don't do what they were planning on doing. Before you know it, it's the summer, it's July 4th, and you're like, where did the first 6 months go? The year is half over. Okay, another charge of energy happens, but it kind of dies down by the time kids go back to school. And before you know it, you're back into December and thinking, hey, where did the year go? So I think this is a really key thing that we need to talk about. And in this video, we can give some really clear strategies to make 2012 even better than 2011. So one of the key things we want to share with is the difference between a wish and a goal. When does a wish become a goal? I want to suggest that a wish becomes a goal when, number one, there is a clear burning desire, a compelling desire for you to make something happen. If you just kind of want it to happen, it's not going to happen. And I'm going to share a story with one of the things that I'm going through and when that became a clear desire for me. I think number two is that you have to have the will to do whatever it takes, legally and ethically and morally, to move forward on making it happen. If you don't have that will, but you have this desire, but you don't really feel like getting off the couch to make it happen, it's not going to happen. And finally, I think it's also really important to really believe in yourself. And I'm sure you can relate. I think all of us can relate. There are times in our lives where we want to do something, we say we believe in ourselves, but we really don't really have that level of belief. And ultimately, we hold ourselves back. So having these three things, that burning desire, the will, and the belief, is, I think, necessary ingredients to start to move from this fantasy or a wish to move more towards a goal that you're really serious about. And I wrote this note down here. I said an emotional, committed decision. And I think those three words are important. Emotional. And as you've seen from our previous videos, we talk about emotionalizing ideas in our subconscious mind. And Napoleon Hill spent a lot of time talking about that. We talked about committed, that you are serious about making it happen. And it's a decision. And one of the things I think you'll notice is that whenever you get really serious and you make a decision that, that's it, I'm not going to do this anymore, I am going to do this, that it kind of has an earmark or a marker inside of you that gets you to move. So I think those are some key ideas, Judy. And what are your thoughts on that before we talk about how we can actually implement them with some specific tactics?
I have a couple things I want to say. One of the things when we discuss time, the element of time, that continually comes back to me is Napoleon Hill's use of the quotation, And this is the quotation: "If wishes were horses, beggars would ride." And it sounds strange when you say, what does that mean? What does that mean? Well, it means that if it were easy to do, everybody would be doing it. And so sometimes our ideas that we put on a piece of paper, whether we call them resolutions or wishes or dreams or desires or goals, there's different levels of actualization. So we have to get to that level of really emotionalizing our desire and commitment to achieve what we put down. And that's why we can only have a very limited number, because we can't diversify in such a way to get everything accomplished. And I was reading another article on New Year's resolutions, and it says, if you look at many people's lists, the same items appear year after year after year. Well, that tells you something. It tells you that they're not accomplishing those ideas or items on their list. And that's a shame, because we can all move forward. We can all see with gratification some progress if we commit to action and do it in an emotionalized way. I was telling Ray that I had some end of the year things that I had to get accomplished recently, and some, well, both of them were financial, because you want to do things at the end of the year so they apply to the taxes for the year. And I was kind of prodding my husband along, saying, did you do this? Did you get this done? And, we're getting very close to the end of the year. And yesterday, well, actually the day before yesterday, I asked him, I said, have you done this? And he said, no. And I said, I want it done. And he says, you're the most impatient person I know. And I said, well, there's not a lot of time left. And so a little argument percolated, but then we actually accomplished what it was that I wanted to have done. Because I didn't want to do it in 2012. I wanted to do it in 2011. And I think it makes a difference when you have that intensity, whether you call it impatience or, persistence or discipline or, just being, ugly about getting something done. You still have to want it badly enough to make it happen. And I know you're on a program, Ray, that you've committed yourself to for 90 days. And we were discussing that too. That's a rather long commitment, but you're seeing very good progress. So why don't you tell us a little about that?
Sure, absolutely. So one of the things that I decided that I wanted to change in my life is to really enhance my longevity and my health. I live a pretty healthy life by and large. I mean, I eat pretty good food and organic foods and things like that, but I still was not really performing and living up to my best view of myself. So about a year ago, I had a whole bunch of blood tests taken, and some numbers are good, some numbers were not so good. And for the first 6 months, I was kind of going about it in a less serious manner, making improvement, but not really focusing on it. And right around the time of my birthday in September, my girlfriend bought me a pass to go to 1 month of this exercise routine I mentioned earlier on called CrossFit. So I started on this, and as I started on this, it was really the type of exercise that I enjoyed, and I really started to take to it. And I go there 5 days a week, and I'm really serious about it. I've also changed my diet to be more aligned with the way our bodies are designed to metabolize foods, which is a whole other video topic. I won't go into that. And anyway, the results have been really great. In the last 6 weeks, I've been able to, for example, improve my bench press from 140 pounds to 180 pounds. I did that today. My back squat has gone up significantly. My deadlift went from like 150 pounds to 315 pounds. I mean, these are some pretty big percentage-wise increases in a relatively short period of time. I don't share this to brag. I just share it because when you get committed and you get serious about enhancing your health or any other aspect of your life, you're going to start to see some pretty incredible progress in a relatively short period of time. So I'm really excited, actually, Judy, because in the first week of January, I'm going to go and take my blood test again. I'm engaged in a 90-day health transformation that started on December 1st, which, by the way, goes right over New Year's Eve. And I got to tell you, I've always enjoyed a good glass of champagne or a glass of wine. And this is going to be my very first New Year's Eve since I was a kid that I'm not going to have any alcohol because I'm not allowed sugar on my health challenge. So I'm sticking to it. I'm being as disciplined as I can. And I'm getting the results, and I'm really happy about that. And I'm actually I do a video blog every day to inspire, motivate other people to follow their path to reach the health that they want. So pretty excited about that.
Congratulations on that. It sounds like you've really done some transforming things that are going to change your life radically in the future. And I know it takes discipline and persistence, and that's what it's all about. It's not easy. You know, I have to mention Deepak Chopra had just recently done an interview for our convention, and he said, you know, sometimes people view success as being so hard. Well, in the beginning, I think we make it hard, but once we put ourselves into motion and we step into our future, I think that's when we begin to realize that it's not all that awful or all that hard, because we're seeing progress and we're noting that we're getting things done. So yeah, success is hard. I don't want to give anybody the idea that you snap your fingers or something appears and it manifests out of nothing. It takes our ideas to transform our lives. And our ideas only enter into how we change our lives when we become action-oriented, because we're physical beings. And so it's true, thoughts are things, but thoughts that remain thoughts and are transformed into action really don't help us in this manifestation. So we have to get busy. We have to get busy and do things.
And in the process of getting busy and doing things, as you just mentioned, I think it's really important, irrespective of the path that you're on, to be really observant around the small wins that you start to accumulate in the beginning. Because quite often it's quite easy to ignore these small wins, but it's these small wins with like a snowball starts to grow and you start to improve your self-esteem and your self-confidence in that area. You start to realize that it is possible. You start to see yourself transform. And as any student in any discipline, we all want to see progress. And that is what gives you additional momentum to keep going. Now, Junie, if it's okay here, I'd like to share some specific strategies that you guys can use to implement what we're talking about in very clear terms. So this is a good time to get a pen and paper out. Okay, so one of the things we talked about is making an emotional committed decision. If it's going to be an emotional committed decision, it has to be related to our definite chief aim. It has to be related to our purpose. So a lot of times people set up a goal, but it's not really aligned with their purpose, and they wonder why nothing happens. So step number one, as Napoleon Hill has said, as we have said many, many times, is you have to go back to what is your purpose? What is it that you really want your life to be about? And you may have some sub-definite chief aims or minor definite chief aims, but you have a primary one. So come back to that. Second step is, what is your strategy to move forward in the direction of this purpose? You have to have the strategy, because remember, goals are more detail-oriented things. They have to fit into a bigger picture. That's your strategy. Number three is the setting the goals, and we've talked a lot about that. But now, this is the key point. You have to have a what by when. It's the when. It's the timeline. So have a timeline for completing these goals. So write that word down, timeline. And then underneath that, I want you to write down the word time block. You have to pick out time on your calendar, make a date with yourself to go and do it, and hold yourself accountable, just like you would with any other important relationship in your life. And the relationship with yourself, I want to say, is your most important relationship. So put that forward so that when you make a date with yourself, you stick to it. And inch by inch, foot by foot, you're going to end up reaching your goals. So again, that's purpose, strategy, goals, timeline, and time block. So I think that can help them.
You know, Ray, if they read the guest column today by Michael Telapari, they're going to see exactly what you just outlined in his column. I've known Michael for a few years now, and he's been wanting to begin to live his dream, but he's had to make a transition. He was a store owner, an entrepreneur in the Netherlands for 25 years, but his heart and soul belong in the world of the artist. He's a musician, and he does he plays a musical instrument, and he also does graphic design. And I've seen him transform from becoming and remaining a shopkeeper, a storekeeper, to living his dreams. And I'll be seeing Michael next week in Las Vegas. We're going to be working with the Organic Gold group out there. And I think it's remarkable, because as I reflect back, I can remember way in the beginning when it was just a dream, and now he's accomplished that dream. He's done his artwork, he's written the book, and he's moving on to the next stage. He's closed his store, and he's ready to start the next part of his life. And I really feel that there's an electrical, emotional, energized charge in his personality now that maybe, he only thought about before.
Oh, so that's very exciting. Oh, I think you can hear that phone in the background here.
That's okay. We all have them. We all have them. One other thing I wanted to mention that I forgot, in his article too, he says the one common element that is consistently in all Napoleon Hill's 17 success principles is the element of time. And I never really thought of it that way until I started doing this Ezine on time. And he's right. Time is the factor that we have to engage before any of those principles of success can become habit forming in our lives. And so unless we commit to doing something in that block of time that you just talked about, you might as well forget it, because it's not going to happen for us.
That's so important. And I just thought of something that I think will be really the zinger that's going to help our audience move forward. Let me share this idea. So for those of you watching, I want you to imagine two things and really use your imagination on this. Okay. Number one, let's imagine that 1 year passes from today. We're now looking at 2013. And I want you to imagine that your biggest desire, the thing that, or the experience that you really want to happens for you. How will you feel in that very moment as you think back and reflect? Have this picture in your mind of what it would look like, what it would look like from your viewpoint, from other people that you respect's viewpoint. Okay, now I'm going to paint another picture for you. Imagine that 1 year from today, the aspect of your life that is most important to you, that you really want to happen, stays exactly the same as it is today. 1 whole year would pass and nothing at all will have changed. It's a different picture, isn't it? Mm-hmm. I think that if you can imagine these two polarities of the tremendous joy you would have versus I'm going to call it pain, but I don't know if that's the right word, of not seeing progress in your most important area. I think that should be something to kind of keep in mind, that, time is moving forward, whether you work at it or not. And you don't have an endless vacation on Earth. It's a vacation on Earth. Time will end. And with that, Judy, I think this has been another really exciting episode, and we've gave everybody some really clear tools to move forward.
That's right. And just as a closing remark from my end, when I was thinking about time as you were talking about it, past time is hindsight. Future time is foresight, but our current time right now, just what you described, is insight. And we used to call it, when I was in grade school, I went to a parochial grade school, it was called examination of conscience. It's thinking about what we're doing. And so with that insight, we can change our world. We can change our future. Okay, and we can look at our past and say, even if it wasn't the best past of anybody's experience, we can say, I've learned from it and I'm ready to grow from my experiences. So I think there's a lot of many kernels of truth in what we've just said, Ray. And I think if people just take those basic ideas and give themselves a challenge, maybe not 90 days, maybe that's too much, maybe a week at a time, to do something similarly to what you're doing, I think you're going to see some great growth in 2012.
That's true.
Happy New Year, right?
Happy New Year, and Happy New Year to everyone. I'd also just like to remind everybody, we would love to see your comments and your questions, so please do send them to us. Just send them to ezinequestions@naphill.org, and that's at the bottom of your screen, and you can see that now. Also, feel free to comment on our YouTube channel. We definitely read the comments and we'll post back. But in terms of questions that we can address in these videos, it's really best to send it to us via the email mechanism. Also, other key things. Please share this video with your friends, your family, your colleagues. There's a lot of good information that can be shared. And with the power of the internet, you can share it with people all around the world. Let them hear these key messages of hope and inspiration and motivation, and get them to also become part of the Ezine newsletter distribution list so they can get it for themselves. And with that, Judy, I'm so excited about 2012. We have a lot of great things that we want to accomplish together. So looking forward to it.
Yes, they need to put that on their New Year's resolution list, that they're going to listen to us 52 times next year.
There you go. I like it. I love it.
Okay.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye, Ray.